Welcome to this week's Eternal Monday, where Weezing from Deoxys takes on United Wings from Paldea Evolved. This is a really fun matchup. It's a difficult one for Weezing for sure, but the back and forth in this particular game is quite fun. You're gonna really enjoy it, I promise. Weezing is kind of like Roaring Moon EX from our most recent set, Paradox Rift. So if you're familiar with the instant knockout effect that Roaring Moon has, Weezing is very similar. Weezing, of course, is a stage 1 instead of a basic Pokemon, but it's also a single prizer instead of a multi-prizer. So you have the attack Liability that for a single colorless energy puts damage counters on the defending Pokemon until it has just 10 HP remaining. So while it's not technically the instant knockout that Roaring Moon has, it is in a way because you have some means of making it an instant knockout via something like poison or burned conditions. Weezing is such a terror for multi-prizers in the Eternal format, and it's such a terror that when we tried to record a few games featuring it versus some multi-prizers, the games were just not very good. They were over very quickly, they were super lopsided, there wasn't enough back and forth to make them fun and engaging to watch, so we scrapped those games and went with something a little bit more back and forth, and this is, like I said, this is a really fun match. I hope you all enjoy. If you're new here, you might be wondering what the heck even is the Eternal format. In short, it is the unlimited format with a ban list. So this means the format features cards from the original base set all the way through to the most recent tournament legal set. Although it's an unofficial format, it's an incredibly fun format with a lot of rich deck building and gameplay experience to be had. If you're interested in learning more about the Eternal format, you can do so at justinbasil.com/eternal. Up first, we have United Wings, pretty well-known quantity, I think, in the standard format. This version here is a little different than you're used to in standard, though. It does have the 12 United Wings attackers. It also has Mew from Fate's Collide with its Memories of Dawn ability, allowing it to copy the attacks of basic Pokemon on the bench. This deck is also running the Kilowatt Troll with Jet Wing. It's a free retreater. It's also a means of evolving out of a special condition spam. So if you're paralysis locked, it gets you out of that. You're running the Squawk ability just like you would in standard to draw some extra cards on your first turn. However, in this matchup, you very much don't want it in play if you can avoid it. Marshadow GX similarly copies the attacks of basic Pokemon, and you also don't want it out in this particular matchup because it is also a multi-prizer, and it's a very squishy one at that. But basically everything else in the deck is means of trying to get your United Wings attackers into the discard pile or out so that they can be attacking as quickly as possible. You have stuff like Battle Compressor that lets you search your deck for 3 cards and discard them. A lot of times those are going to be United Wings attackers. You have Hue, lets you draw or discard until you have 5 cards in your hand. Of course, you have Professor's Research to discard your hand and draw 7 cards. And you'll be attacking with any of the United Wings attackers. That's Flamigo and Wattrel, which use double colorless energy, Murkrow, which uses darkness energy, and then you'll also be able to attack with Mew from Fate's Collide because you'll be able to copy the attacks of those United Wings attackers. In other matchups, you might also use Marshadow GX to do the same thing, but in this one, as I've already said, you really don't want Marshadow out. Either way, fairly straightforward deck, not that complicated really. Let's look at the next deck. Up next, we have the Nightmare of Multi-Prizers, Weezing from Deoxys. It uses the coughing from Team Rocket Returns with the Pokebody Knockout Gas, which means if it's knocked out by an opponent's attack, the attacking Pokemon is now confused and poisoned, which is pretty good. Of course, we have the star of the show, Weezing with Liability. Liability, of course, being that attack that for a single colorless energy puts damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until they have just 10 HP remaining. And then you have things like Ariados's Poisonous Net ability, which once during your turn allows you to use the ability and poison both active Pokemon except any grass Pokemon, which is very convenient for Weezing because this is from an era where Weezing was a grass Pokemon, so it wouldn't be affected by Ariados's ability. You also have the Pokepower Poison structure on Skuntank G that allows you to poison both active Pokemon so long as you have a Stadium card in play, excluding any Pokemon SP, which allows you to do much the same thing. If you're in an especially dire situation, you can also use Hypnotoxic Laser to poison your opponent's active Pokemon to take the knockout with Liability. As again, Liability doesn't take you all the way on the knockout like Roaring Moon's Frenzied Gouging would, but it does get you just 10 HP shy, so something like Poison off of Ariados, Skuntank, or Hypnotoxic Laser will do the trick. You do have Protection Cube. Protection Cube makes it so that you're not knocking yourself out when you're using Liability, so you're kind of benefiting a little bit from that particular tool in this situation. And for your energies, you're running Recycle Energies and Rescue Energies. Recycle Energies, of course, going to bounce back to your hand when you're knocked out so that you always have one available to you. Rescue Energy going to scoop you back up so that you have your Weezings available to immediately re-evolve. And that one of Jet Energy just means that off of something like a Guzma and Hala, there is a way to get a benched Weezing forced into the active spot, which makes it just that much easier to knock out your opponent's active Pokemon. The only other card really worth highlighting here at the moment is going to be Teammates. Teammates, of course, going to be able to get you any 2 cards that you need from your deck when you need them, and since you're running Versus Seeker, you'll have access to it through a lot of the game. Anyway, that's Weezing from Deoxys. Let's watch it in action. And we are shuffled up. Get the little fist bump going. Murkrow and Spinarak for our starters here. Artisan, very good to see early on in the game here. Coughing going down, touching a Recycle Energy and a Protection Cube right off the bat. Pretty good stuff. Trainer's Mail, finding a Battle Compressor. Definitely what United Wings wants to see. 3 of those United Wingsers immediately in the discard pile. And a Research, making it even spicier. Oh, that is a painful Research. 2 Versus Seeker, 2 Professor's Research, and an Iono going down in that Research to draw more cards to try to stay in the game. Computer Search and Ultra Ball finding a Mew and a Flamigo. Flamigo finding another Flamigo for the hand there. That is a painful one. But United Wings is going to take a knockout. That Spinarak does go down. Coughing, having to go to the active spot there to sponge up an attack most likely. Just gonna see. We do see Skuntank G come down. My opponent there showing the Versus Seekers in his hand. He would have to discard off a Sycamore. Managed to top deck an in. All right, we see some more play though. We got Spinarak, we got Ditto Prism. Good stuff. We do see the poison now in effect from that Skuntank G. Not ultimately gonna be able to take a knockout. Of whiffed the Weezing. Just a little bit of a poison there on that. But United Wings does once again take an attack on that Spinner. Does take a knockout rather on that Spinarak. Taking a second prize card. We do finally see Weezing come out. That's a Recycle Energy attachment here. Poisoned already for the Murkrow. So just Liability will take the knockout when it hits here. Getting itself set. Weezing getting itself set up with some more coughings. Murkrow does go down and Liability takes its first knockout. See an Ultra Ball on the United Wings side. Flamigo coming down, getting it back out after having it end away. I think at this point I was realizing I needed to make sure I didn't skip a beat when it came to attackers. And this game was really, really hard on both of us to try to keep up. Whiffing attacks felt awful. Weezing is really setting up now. You see the Weezing coming down, another Protection Cube. It's just super good. Ariados now poisoning things, taking another Murkrow down. It's now down to 4 prize cards. Trainer's Mail finding 2 Acrobikes and 2 Double Colorless Energy. I remember seeing that and going, why couldn't I just get the Double Colorless Energy? But the Acrobike does find energy. I wish I didn't have to discard the Darkness Energy, but I did find the Double Colorless, so that's fine. The Flamigo there able to take the KO on that Weezing. Trying to keep up that pace. Down to 2 prize cards now. Lapras coming down, finding Arven. Arven finding Protection Cube and Rescue Stretcher. Rescue Stretcher, of course, shuffling a few of those liability Pokemon back into the deck. And a Coughing coming down off that Artisan. Weezing once again taking a knockout on one of those United Wingsers. Mew goes back into the active spot. It is a free retreater. Very useful to have. Looks like I discarded a Watchel there. Finding a Murkrow. As I recall, the Murkrow was designed to be a sacrifice here. I knew I was going to whiff an attack, and I wanted to make sure I had something that could sponge the hit that I wouldn't find especially useful. So Murkrow does go to the active spot, and I pass. Doesn't feel great missing a knockout after having done so well early on in the game. We do see Turffield Rescue Energy and a Protection Cube come off of that Guzma and Hala. Turffield Stadium going down, finding a new Weezing. Weezing going down on the bench there. Ariados poisoning the active Murkrow, and Liability will once again take a knockout, knocking out that Murkrow. Mew going to the active spot, and at this point I just kind of have to hope and pray. Acrobike getting me a... Okay, that Ultra Ball goes immediately. Double Colorless Energy, absolutely busted. Double Colorless Energy going down on that Flamigo. I find a Battle Compressor in my hand, realized I should probably play it to maximize my chances of getting what I need next turn. So I thin out my deck as much as I can of stuff I don't want to draw into. My opponent throwing Weezing once again into the active spot after having taken that knockout. I'm down to just 1 prize card. You see those Protection Cubes get shuffled back into the deck with Eco Arm. Pretty freaking important for this deck to have those available to it, or you don't really, especially in this matchup where you don't really have any sort of advantage in the prize trade here. Versus Seeker coming down. Versus Seeker going to find an in, I believe. Yeah, I'm gonna hit in, try to drop me down to 1 card, one different card in this case. I think I had an Acrobike at the time. My top deck here really is going to decide the game. So I promote the Mew. You see the hue that I drew off the top of the deck, off of that N. So I'm gonna draw up until I have 5 cards. So that's gonna draw 4. That very first card I drew was, and you're gonna see it here in a second, Double Colorless Energy for game. Absolutely crazy game. Really love Liability Weezing as a deck. It does have some vulnerabilities that aren't really exposed in this matchup. A single prize matchup is actually not super great, but as you can see here in this game against United Wings, it can still do it. It has the means, it has the capability. It's not a bad deck. And this particular build, we've been working on it now for a few weeks. And one of my testing partners especially has been working heavily on it. It's really good. And like I said earlier, it absolutely terrorizes multi-prizers. I know we tested it against Miraidon, and Miraidon wilted. It's been tested against Bayonet. It couldn't handle it. You put it up against a 3-prizer, the 3-prizer is going to have a hell of a time. It's a really fun deck, and I'm super glad that it's kind of making its rounds into the Eternal format. Shout out to That Unlimited Professor from the Discord. They brought it to a tournament back in October, one of our online league tournaments, and it caught our eye. My testing partner and I worked on it a little bit. Obviously, they worked on it much more than I did, but they've been working on it, and I think they've got a pretty good list. Obviously, there's always some things that could be done to polish it up a little bit and continue to develop that list and prepare it for the ever-developing meta that is the Eternal format here. Super fun game that I really hope you guys enjoyed. Anyway, that is all for today's Eternal Monday. If you enjoyed what you were watching and happen to find yourself in the San Antonio, Texas area on January 13th, you can join us for the next Eternal format special event. Registration and validation begins at 11 a.m. with round 1 starting about noon. Keep an eye on the channel for Wednesday's bonus video featuring Gardevoir and Charizard EX for the post-rotation format for Temporal Forces. We're starting to dive a little bit into that. And of course, keep an eye on the channel for Friday's live stream because that's also going to be fun. But that is all for today. I hope you all have a wonderful new year. I'll see you in the next video.